Hey, you guys, today we're going to be talking about, do women really want you to be vulnerable and share your feelings? But before we begin, um, I am really wanting some advice, especially from the men. You men are really good at this electronic stuff. I just spent the last 30 minutes experimenting with this mic thing, and the audio quality is not what I want. What I think I have to do is get a podcast mic that plugs into a PC. And my PC, my Mac, is like 10 years old. I'm willing to get all new equipment. I'm willing to get a new Mac, willing to get a better mic because I really want the sound quality to be good. And I didn't realize that people were not getting a good sound quality. So I would really like your feedback on how the audio quality is here. This is about as good as I can get with this. This one was $120 I spent on this, and it plugs into my Android phone. And I've been making YouTube videos on my Android phone since 2015. This is like my 8th channel because I kept violating the rules and lost my channel. But anyway, lately people have been saying the audio quality isn't good. I'd never heard that before. And so I have been trying different mics. This is the second mic, but I may need to upgrade my equipment. I would like to know what you think. Ideally, I will record into my phone. Ideally, I would maybe just get a different phone because I don't want to get a camera and I don't want to record into my PC. I want to be able to sit here in my living room, put my phone on my tripod, and talk to you, like a mom in her living room. That's how I want to do it. So, your advice is very much welcome. I'm going to be taking my personal trainer actually recommended this book because he and I talk a lot about men's work and personal development in between me lifting heavy shit. And I didn't realize when I looked him up, this gentleman also has a YouTube channel called Men Talks, and he leads men's groups. And I'm like, oh yeah, I recognize this guy because I've seen his videos, and I was so impressed, like with his presence and his masculine energy. I'm like, this is the kind of guy I want to meet. Of course, they're always married and live far away, but I didn't know that at the time I ordered this book. This book is full of a lot of work. I highly recommend that you look through this and do the exercises. And it's good for women too about finding your shadow, uh, seeing, the impact of your mother or your father on how you treat people. But today I want to talk specifically about what caught my attention in my reading this morning. I love to read about this chapter 7, the vulnerability myth and emotional sovereignty. And this has to do with something that I've talked about with men and women, which is that we say we want men to be vulnerable, but when they break down and share our feelings, we get turned off. We actually do. And so, what do women mean? And how can a man be vulnerable? So, I'm going to be reading like a little bit of parts of this book because here, this is key. Um, well, you may have found this double bind for yourself. On the one hand, men are told they need to be more vulnerable, open up, and talk about their emotions. However, when a man does these things, he can be met with anger, confusion, someone trying to fix this problem. But really, I think mostly women are going to be sexually repulsed. The reality is that most women still crave strong, assertive, and stable men. Yes. Let me repeat that. Most women crave strong, assertive, and stable men. So, how can you be stable and strong and assertive and yet be vulnerable? Are we women just like confused about what we want? I've heard a number of men address this in a variety of ways. Um, the author of the Mars Venus books, God, his name slipped my mind right now. Oh, the man who wrote the Mars Venus books, he says that what a woman really wants is for a man to understand her feelings, listen to her feelings, and understand her feelings. So that's really important. That's what we want because we are emotional creatures. And we want to know that you can handle our feelings, that you care about our feelings, and that you can handle our feelings. And when I say handle our feelings, it means either listening or putting up a boundary. Okay? It is when I say women are emotional creatures, and I disagree with men who say that women are so emotional, as in that's okay. It is not okay for women to use their emotions to attack, criticize, or belittle a man ever. So women also need to get a grip on their emotions. Our emotions flow, but they should never be used as a weapon to hurt a man or belittle a man or put someone down or try to control someone. So that's where the man has to be assertive and give the woman a boundary, and that makes a normal woman feel safe. We want to know that you have a boundary because if you don't have a boundary, how can we feel safe with you? Okay, so how okay, so you're able to listen to our feelings, but what about sharing your feelings? That's what we're going to get into in this chapter. I've heard someone else say that, and I don't know who wrote this in one of the books I read recently, that a woman wants a man to share his problem only when he also knows how to solve it. For example, I feel very frustrated at work, and this is what I'm doing about it. Now that's hot. You're sharing your feelings, you're showing how you can solve it, and you have a plan. So again, you're vulnerable and you're also strong and protecting and stable. But what but does that doesn't seem fair because sometimes a man has learned that in order to be stable, he has to repress all of his feelings. So a lot of men go around feeling really numb or they're emotionally all over the place because you have to, as a man, also have a place to express your feelings, and you have to do that with other men. This is what so many men have also told me that a men's group, or whether it's a group of men that you know, like 12-step meetings are really good for finding men's groups, or you join a men's group like the DSO fraternity from Dad Starting Over. I've interviewed him on my channel. Or a group through him, Men's Talks. He has groups. There may be other ones you can find online. Find a group of men where you can share your feelings with other men. And I have kind of heard some of these men share their feelings, or when I've gone to 12-step meetings, men really share their feelings very openly. And they have feelings too. They want to cry, they feel ashamed, they talk about how they were belittled or abused or had their feelings hurt. You have to have a place to express your feelings. But don't do it with your woman because it's going to turn us off because now you're putting us in the role of nurturer, caretaker, and the sexual stuff leaves the room. You're just blowing up your woman's sexual desire. So find other men to talk to. So important. Okay, because okay, so what he says in his book is that women want to know how you're feeling and that you're capable of navigating through it. And that's what I was saying before. You have a problem, you feel a certain way, and you're capable of working through it. And then he calls that emotional sovereignty. And it's different from women because we're able to just share our feelings and be like, oh, we just feel this way, and it's kind of okay because we're supposed to be like the softer, more dependent species. But for men, you definitely have to show that you know how to work through it. Even Brene Brown in her book Daring Greatly talks about this. Here is the painful pattern that emerged from my research with men. This is from Brene Brown. We ask them to be vulnerable, but the truth is that most women can't stomach it. In those moments when real vulnerability happens in men, most of us women recoil with fear, and that fear manifests as everything from disappointment and to disgust. Okay. The harsh reality most women don't want to admit, and this is again from the author of this book, that many of them do not know how to receive or bear witness to a man's vulnerable side. Some women actively reject it and close off in a relationship, lose sexual attraction, or find themselves less interested and less able to trust after a man expresses his weaknesses or insecurities. When a man expresses this vulnerability, it can be met with hostility, repulsion, and disgust. So, this is what you do. You find men's groups where you can talk about your feelings, and then with your woman and just out in the world, you have to develop emotional sovereignty. And I'm going to say that women do too. Like, I'm reading this book and I'm taking this in myself because I also need emotional sovereignty. You know, when I get triggered, I can't just go off on people. So we all need to learn this, okay? But I will tell you that the response that I get from a man, if I go off on him a little bit, they'll kind of like give me a little leeway or apologize. They won't be turned off sexually, but for a man, the impact is much different. Emotional sovereignty says, what is emotional sovereignty? I feel this way. It's okay. I am capable of navigating through it, and I have the counsel to support me. The counsel being his friends, his mentors, his advisors. You guys have to get some friends. It's so important to have some male friends. Do not overlook this. The real secret to developing emotional sovereignty is being around men who have a more robust emotional language and stability that you currently possess. Men who are willing to let you vent, but are also willing to confront you for complaining about the same thing for weeks on end without doing anything to change your circumstances. Men who can talk about their fears and how they're working to confront them. Men who are willing to discuss the depths of grief after a breakup, death of a parent, or a failed business venture. These are the kinds of bonds and relationships most men are deeply craving but admittedly missing, often because they are terrified of the real, confronting, and uncomfortable experiences that will inevitably follow. Now, when it comes to sharing your feelings with the woman with emotional sovereignty, first of all, don't share too much too soon, okay? You've got to make sure that you have built a solid foundation and trust. And then when you do share, share in a way where you set the context, the content, and the direction. What does that mean? So here's an example, okay? Instead of being like, oh, I've got this, instead of saying, um, I'm so sad about my mom's illness, you know, I just feel so sad. Don't just go like that, but say context, content, and direction. Hey, do you have a few minutes? It's hard for me to say, but I've been feeling a lot of sadness about my mom's diagnosis and just want to share, but could also use some insight into what I can do. Okay? That's an example of a manly way. Now, the other thing is that in a relationship, you want to choose a woman you want to navigate hardship and conflict with. Choose someone you're willing to engage in confrontation with and be challenged by. Do not allow yourself to merely tolerate the person you're with and the way they behave during conflict, or this tolerance will lead to resentment and slowly erode the intimacy. Aim to know who they are during conflict and decide for yourself whether this is amicable for you, and something you can live with, maybe even come to appreciate. Choose someone you trust, respect, and know you can engage in conflict with when it arises is crucial. It may seem unnecessary to say, but a woman's anger and intensity is not an excuse for your reactivity, childish attacks, or volatility. And I will tell you, when men do any of that, I'm just out of there. Because I work with men. If I see any of that in a guy, I'm like, there's no way that I'm going to work with you. It's a turn off. Like, we want you to be stable. Like, don't don't fall apart. You got to be able to handle us. Okay? Okay? Likely one of your greatest tests within the relationship will be when she's angry, sad, creating conflict, attacking you, or disappointed in you. Stay with her intensity and learn where to create structure or set boundaries. Learn how to navigate her fire and move with the flow of her force, but know where the line is. And now listen here, and communicate what you're unwilling to tolerate from a grounded and emotionally calm place. There's so many women, because we get more emotional, who haven't yet worked on the stuff, and who have gotten away with just being emotionally volatile and rude, and that is never okay. I want to say again, it is never okay for a woman to use her emotions to attack, belittle, or criticize you, and you as the man have to give a boundary. But you want to do it from a calm, grounded place. Tell her where the line is, show her what you will not tolerate without losing your cool. Now, how do you do that? You've got to learn some presence practices. Notice when you start getting angry. Calm yourself down with breathing and grounding, okay? I work on this stuff too. You know, it's not easy. We got to work on this stuff. And if you need to take a time out from the conversation, say, I need to take a break from this conversation and we will reconnect in 20 minutes. Okay, you have to set the leadership there too and be willing to come back, be willing to call like a break in the conversation. It's okay. Everybody gets triggered, okay? Also, in a relationship, he recommends that you create conflict rules of engagement. What are the rules of engagement? And some of them could be like agreeing to no name calling, taking ownership for what you're experiencing or feeling without finger pointing or blaming the other person, agreeing to avoid absolute words such as you never or you always, and to always assume positive intent. Those are just goals to work toward. Also, if you truly wish to lead within your relationship, then you must be willing to lead the repair. This is essential to emotional sovereignty, as you're not waiting for someone else to reconcile so you feel better. You can't just do the silent treatment, run away. You have to be willing. Your work as a man is to protect and maintain that which matters most to you. So when you disconnect from your partner for long periods of time or refuse to repair when the communication or intimacy has become damaged, you are telling your partner with your actions that the partnership or relationship is not worth maintaining. So that's pretty much it. Again, the book Men's Work by Connor Beaton. I would also like your feedback on the audio quality. I spoke very loud on this video. I generally like to use a more softer voice. I think it's more natural for me and it's more pleasing. I would like your feedback on the kind of mic I can get to use with the phone. I may be willing to get a camera, but I do not want to record from my PC. I really don't. And thank you for watching my video.